I have very vivid recollections of a motor journey through Switzerland not long before the World War began. As it progressed, I saw the effect of environment upon myself. If we went to a hotel in a small town, far from the steam or water power, and therefore without electric light, we found everyone in it going to bed at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. In other towns, where there was electric light, product of developed water power from the Alps, the people didn't go to bed till 11:30 or midnight. They were alive and very likely out on the streets during those extra hours. We were virtually dead when we were asleep. That is, we then have no productive mental life, and no mental life which is not productive counts. Where there was light, we lived longer in the same length of time. Where there was light, we lived longer in the same length of time. Put a developed human being into an environment where there is no efficient artificial light, and we must degenerate. Put an undeveloped human being into an environment where there is artificial light, and he will improve. Environment makes immense changes in animals, and it is interesting and hopeful to note that the environment of human beings is improving more rapidly than that of other animals. Perhaps for an ant or a gnat, it is not changing at all, although primary changes are progressing in the world itself.
Shining electric light. The world owes this and more to Thomas Edison.
The filament of the first practical incandescent lamp which I invented was of carbonized cotton thread. In the search for a better filament, I carbonized everything like it. Carbonized paper horseshoe lamps were used in the first public demonstration of the electrostatic system in Menlo Park on December 31st, 1879.
That reading comes from the diary and sundry observations of Thomas Alva Edison, who we know, perhaps, as the father of the light bulb. Of course, as you probably already know before listening to this podcast, that is not without controversy. Who is the actual father of the light bulb? You can't take apart the light bulb and have one singular piece to point to that says this is the stage at which it becomes a light bulb. And of course, as Edison himself so famously said, there were so many ways to not make a light bulb. There are American icons that we see harnessing forces of nature. Benjamin Franklin flying a kite, catching lightning through the key. The Wright brothers sailing through the air. And in between them, Thomas Edison harnessing light in the form of a light bulb. But is he really the father of the light bulb? Get ready, because we're going to paternity court for the invention of the light bulb.
If the young man makes up his mind to work, there's no limit to what he can do.
Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow.
A century of railroad development.
Up
Of today and tomorrow.
And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
He must go back in any art as far as he can to dig up the very beginning. And he must, the more he goes back, the further he will be able to see ahead.
Picture yourself in a world without the light bulb. It's evening. It's dark out. Sleep has become different. If you live in a city, you travel outside, you go through the streets, and perhaps you have gas lamps setting off a glow distinct and unto itself. If you live in the country, outside of your own house, outside of the lighting that you have within your house, with lamps, kerosene lamps, candles, and so forth, pitch black. Sure, you get the stars and the moon, the natural lights. But outside of that, you live in a dark world. You can imagine, after living in that space, the darkness of the world around you, of the darkness of travel before the invention of the headlight, going simply by star, trying to make it in a deeply shadowed world. This led to the man credited with inventing the light bulb of being showered with praise because of the ways in which he so dramatically changed the world. Changing the world from a place of darkness, right, to a place of light. It was an immense moment. But no innovation stands alone, so we must go back and see the beginning of artificial light. Back in 1735, Jean Clay of Wigan was using coal gas as basically a party trick in front of the Royal Society of London. He had captured it in animal bladders and lit it on fire. Now, this coal gas would go on to be the gas light that we so famously know that preceded artificial light on our streets. The light bulb had been in a sort of development since the beginning of the 19th century. Humphrey Davy, 70 years before Edison and Swan, Humphrey Davy was coming on the scene with the arc light, which produced visible light in the bulb form. The voltaic pile inspired Humphrey Davy. He used it as a power source for the arc lamp. This had an extreme brightness, and it was hard to control. And, like so many of these others before Edison's invention, it did not last very long. It would for a time function in ways as an outdoor street lamp, but it did not catch on for those reasons. Charles F. Brush was an American inventor and entrepreneur, and he helped advance the arc light. In the late 19th century, Brush had developed an improved dynamo, or an electrical generator, which made it more practical to power arc lamps for public lighting. He also designed and installed the first public lighting system in the United States, illuminating the streets of Cleveland, Ohio. And that was in 1879, using those arc lamps. Brush's innovation made electrical lighting more accessible and efficient, paving the way for widespread adoption of electric lights in public spaces. Joseph Swan was an English physicist and chemist. He'd begun working on his own version of the incandescent light bulb in the 1860s. He demonstrated a working prototype with a carbonized paper filament inside a vacuum glass bulb. Joseph Swan had come up with a carbon filament bulb 10 years before Edison. That initial design had a very short lifespan, but it proved that an incandescent light bulb was possible. Swan continued to refine this design of his, and by 1878, he had developed a more efficient carbon filament and improved the vacuum in the light bulb. Swan's lamp was not commercially successful. As we know, Edison's would be. Swan's work was instrumental in changing the name of the game for the light bulb. It had been used in the Savoy Theatre of London, and his own private home was said to be the first to be fully lit by electric lighting. Edison would go on to sue Swan in British courts for patent infringement. The courts ruled in favor of Swan, and to settle this dispute, the two men, in their disagreement, decided to merge their businesses, becoming a British company called Ediswan. They would go on to dominate the English market. No more would mankind have to rely simply on the danger of open flames. Though we may often think of Tesla as that famous rival of Edison, Swan himself would contend with the famous American inventor. Joseph Swan would write to Edison on September 24th, 1880. I had the mortification one fine morning of finding you on my track and in several particulars ahead of me. But now I think I have shot ahead of you, and yet I feel there is almost an infinity of detail to be wrought out in the large application now awaiting development, and your inventive genius, as well as my own will, find very ample room for exercise in carrying out this gigantic work that awaits execution. What do we say about Edison's place in comparison to someone like Swan? Do we consider him then the inventor of the first practical light bulb? After he filed for his first patent in 1879, it was granted in 1880. He would go on to found the Edison Illuminating Company. It would help to create the first electrical generating stations in America, operated under the name Edison Electric Illuminating Company. Edison gets the credit why he gets to be the light bulb guy. Robert Friedel, former professor of history at the University of Maryland, College Park, suggests that it's all about Edison's emphasis of practicality. Edison's was the first truly practical electric light for general use, and that's exactly what its inventor set out to make. He carefully identified all of the key qualifications for a successful rival to the alternatives: reliability, longevity, economy, and aesthetics. He deliberately set out to create an electrical light that would check all of these boxes. This is something no one else succeeded in doing. And this is a through line you can see in some of the great American inventors. Henry Ford, for instance, did not create the first automobile as such, but he set out to make automobiles that were affordable and practical for American families to help them get around. So too, according to Friedel's theory, that's what Edison does with the light bulb. Succeeds in creating a light bulb that's practical, that's usable, that lasts, that's worth your time and money in putting them around the cities and American homes. A big part of Edison's success is his ability to develop a complete electrical system that includes the generators and the wiring, along with the fixtures, in order to support incandescent light bulbs. This holistic approach allowed Edison not only to create a practical light bulb, but also the infrastructure needed for the widespread adoption of a practical light. He developed the direct current, DC, electrical distribution system, enabling homes and businesses to be wired for electrical light. And that brought this technology into the mainstream.